You hit it. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so my name's Danny, and just to start off, I'm no expert in active travel. I am simply someone who participates in active travel. I'm also dyslexic, and my wife didn't proofread this, so if you see any spelling mistakes, I didn't have that time. This is a picture of my little kids, and basically the way I got into active travel was because during lockdown we went for a trip to London, we hired a cargo bike, and I couldn't believe just how amazing it was that I could cycle through the capital city on a cargo bike on the infrastructure that's being built in Liverpool, in London, sorry. So I decided that we were going to go from a two-car household to a one-car household. So I sold my car, I bought a bike, and I started commuting from West Kirby to Liverpool. Here's me through the tunnel, which I won't be able to do from Monday because they're shutting it for 18 months. So what this allowed me to do was to start discovering the infrastructure that's on the Wirral. And mainly, my commute takes me through Birkenhead, so every day I go through Birkenhead. And when you start participating in active travel, you start looking for infrastructure that's going to keep you safe. So I've got a cargo bike that carries my two daughters, so anywhere I go with them, I want to be making sure that I'm using quiet streets, infrastructure that protects us, and so you start looking at that. What I quickly found out that on the Wirral, we're not very good at building the infrastructure. We've got massive development coming towards Birkenhead. We've got Wirral Waters project, and that is a project that's built a cycle path that connects Wirral Waters up to Birkenhead Park. Down Duke Street, you come off from the park and you're presented with this little bit of infrastructure where you've got a segregated path that pedestrians can walk there, a cycle path here, then park cars there. That lasts not very long, and then you're spat out onto the road and you're in a painted cycle lane. What this doesn't do is encourage people to participate in active travel. You look at the infrastructure and the questions you want to ask yourself is this safe? Do I feel safe? Am my family safe? Is this going to get me to where I want to go? Is it easier than getting into a car? And so what you start to realise, there is infrastructure. This is near me. This is a LTN, if you like. It's a cul-de-sac, but there's a little bit of a cut through here that avoids a mini roundabout, which is actually not a very pleasant experience to use. This is in Greasby. So here we've got a segregated cycle path that navigates a roundabout. It uses a lay-by road, and it allows you to cut past this roundabout here to access the shops. So when you start looking at it, you're like, actually there is infrastructure out there. It's just not very well connected, and it doesn't feel safe. So this is Duke Street. This is what I was talking about here. We've got this segregated path, but then we're spat out here. We've got a parked car here, we can see. So we've got a parked car here. It doesn't feel safe. Anyone moving into Wirral Waters isn't going to pick up a bike and go, I'm going to cycle to Birkenhead Park today. They're going to get in their car and they're going to drive because it's safer, it's easier. So what we need to do is we need to get the council to start connecting up, thinking big. This is a project that the council have delayed that would have connected Wirral Waters to Seacombe Ferry Terminal. Sorry, I've lost my chicken foot. So yeah, this is what we need. We need to start building. We need to start building quick, because the development that's happening in Birkenhead now is happening quick. There's talk about now the new project at Birkenhead Central about redeveloping the roundabout. And what we need to do is we need to promote active travel. But that's not simply just someone on a bike. Active travel is people walking. Active travel could be maybe mobility scooters. So on one of these slides, there's a path that runs down Birkenhead, and there's two users on a mobility scooter using that infrastructure. So if you go to the Netherlands or the continent, what you'll see on the continent is it's not just cyclists and pedestrians, it's people using mobility scooters, because that's giving them that option to use that as a mode of transport to get to the local shops, to get to the park. And so this is what I've started to see. This is what we're up against. This is on Duke Road. This is the Wirral Waters project. That's the end of the cycle path. That's where I need to get to. And this is what we're up against. This is what we need to start developing. Because a mobility scooter should be able to cross this level section here, access the roads, and carry on. So yeah, this was just a little snapshot of the experiences I've had in the last 2 years of participating in active travel. I think we're 5 minutes are up nearly. And I just want to help promote it, not just for myself, not just for cyclists, pedestrians, but for all users. And yeah, that's it. Thanks very much.
Can you just go back to the previous slide? Is it possible? No, because that showed a really nice picture of outside Birkenhead Central. I think it was Birkenhead Central Station, which is where I've just walked from. And it showed all these people, you know, walking about using bicycles, and basically very different from the experience I had when I got out of Central Station and started walking along what I think is called Borough Road to get here, and it's just car city really. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Grab a seat. I think.
Thank you. Yeah, that's brilliant.
I mean, it's like, as you were saying about Birkenhead Central down there.
Yeah.
I know that as soon as I left the train station, I came on foot, and as soon as I left the train station today, then I almost got knocked over by one of the cars coming off the roundabout, and they're speeding around the roundabout straight down that road. I'm new to the area-ish, and it's kind of like you know, nearly killed instantly. So there is an awful lot of need for, you know, traffic calming measures, for more cycling infrastructure, and of course, if you're, as you say, if you're building cycling infrastructure from people that are using mobility scooters, it makes it much easier for them to be able to get round, you know, and that crossing there really demonstrated it. I think was that a Duke Street one?
Yeah, Duke Street, yeah.
And you just kind of go, oh, that's it, it ends. But again, what you're saying, it was a really interesting experience. So just over the past 2 years, that's what you've done. Can you tell, for one of the things that I've noticed a bit is that you, by using your bike more, and you've got your kids and you're carrying your kids as well at times, do you find that you're talking to more people in the street?
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's
a vocal point, yeah. So the cargo bike, every time I park it up at the supermarket, instantly there is someone who wants to come and ask about it, you know. And 50% of the time, that's a really nice toy, isn't it? And so I have to sit down and I'm like, it's my vehicle. It's that this is what I use now to get around. I've sold my car. You know, we've just got the one car now that we use. And so people are going, oh, right, okay. And then once you've had that discussion, you start breaking it down, they realise that actually, no, okay, that is a feasible way of transporting your children around.
Yeah.
But, you know, then thereafter, you know, the roads are very busy, and you're like, yes, the roads are very busy, and this is why we need to start moving forward and start looking at ways of tackling that barrier that's there now. People don't want to adopt a cargo bike because they perceive everything as being dangerous. And that's what we need to build upon, you know, and infrastructure really is the fundamental building block of, if it looks safe and people feel safe, then they'll use it. You know, we don't build motorways that are unsafe, that go nowhere, that don't have service stations, you know. So why should like active travel be any different? But that's the barriers up against, and you know, we're also up against a council at the moment that don't want to participate in it. They've delayed projects that now fundamentally won't go ahead. So it just feels like sometimes the people who should be helping you are the people who are putting the barriers up.
I mean, it does seem again like that it you know, it's very uneven, because they have got, you know, if I'm going towards Birkenhead from where I live, there's a road, a dual carriageway I think it is, and they've taken one of the lanes and made it into a cycle track. So it's not like they're not doing anything.
No.
But what they've got to do then is follow through with what they're doing. Because if they're only doing it piecemeal, it's not a solution, is it?
It does need to be integrated.
Yeah.
And so it's joining up those different
Fender Lane
Yeah.
is for, and I use that on a Saturday as a means to get home. But unfortunately, it does connect at one end, but at the other end at Morton, you're just spat out into traffic.
It is really.
But that's it. It's like you said, it's that stepping stone, and that's what we need to build upon now. But
it's just thinking. It's just. I suppose it's more expensive to do, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Because at the end of the day, it's going to have enormous benefits to the population at large if people could just think that way, really.
Definitely.
Is the part? I mean, I'm not from the Wirral. I'm from Lancashire.
Mm.
But is there a group or a kind of? Because I'm sure there's more than you that's interested.
Yeah,
in
I
this,
mean,
you know?
there's the Active Travel Forum.
Yeah.
Although I'm not a member of that, I don't really understand this. I've only just started participating in the whole activity of it all.
Were you connected in any way with that event that happened? Because there was an event in Liverpool last year, I think it was about September, October time, I couldn't tell you exactly when, and they actually managed to, they closed down a section of the Strand in Liverpool that all the motorists got absolutely, they went apeshit over, as you can imagine, because the Strand is a really, big thoroughfare, and they actually managed to close a section of it for quite a long time during the day, and it was raining, so there weren't many there, but there were a lot of groups, sort of active travel style groups, cycling groups and so on, that sort of took up quite a few stalls. It was quite an innovative thing to have done, but then it had a bit of kind of like a backlash.
There was a backlash about it. I think it was No Car Day in September last year, and it was pouring with rain, and I knew some of the people that were out on some of the stalls. There was also the backlash was mainly because nobody had bothered to inform anybody about it, so I didn't even know it was meant to be taking place. And then the drivers that were coming into town, they didn't know that it was blocked, and therefore there was an enormous amount of snarl up. And I think because of the rain and because of the poor communication about it from Liverpool City Council, they called it off after about maybe 6 hours, 7 hours, because there wasn't that much point in keeping it going. And I think that sometimes it is that the organisations that are organising these things don't necessarily inform members of the public about it. It's a bit like the new highway code, the new issues in the highway code, and they're going, you need to give cyclists more room, and cyclists need to give pedestrian. The priority is shifted. The pedestrian is the most important person, but again, as a pedestrian, you wouldn't know it if you're out on the street. And it's we need to be. That's it. We need to become more people focused and less car focused. And I think being out, walking, cycling, doing it is a great way of getting exercise for yourself. It's being healthier. The health benefits are just enormous, both physically but also mentally, because you're not coming home from work really stressed. You're coming back, you're kind of like going. By the time you get home, you might be drenched through to the skin. But again, it's like you've washed away the troubles of the day.
Yeah, definitely. And from having a traumatic experience a couple of months ago, part of my therapy was to get out on my bike. And you're absolutely right. I commute back from Liverpool, and people say to you like this, the stress of it. But actually, once you've navigated the busy parts, you've just got yourself the road, and it's a physical benefit. But also for me, it's a mental benefit as well. Like the stress of not driving a car, is massive. Like, and also cost. Well, that mean like that. That was another major reason for getting rid of the car was I didn't own the car. It's on a hire purchase scheme. From the price I'm paying for one car, I now own 2 bikes that I actually own. So again, it's teaching my kids. I want my kids to realise that owning a car isn't a status of how well you're doing in life. And I think in society that can be a symbol of look how well I'm doing. I've got this car on my drive, and I don't want to living up like that as an indication to success.
No, that's a really good point. It is that we do. That's almost how we've been trained to think. And we need to break that training to actually just rethinking, what is it that we value most in life? What is it that, and just shift it so it is more that we're, valuing the community around us, the environment that we live in, and it's not, I've got like a hunk of metal sat outside for, probably 16, 17, 18 hours a day, the small amount of time it gets used. And you're just going to go, just trying to get people to rethink those kinds of processes.
And a bike, just 2 days ago, I met a neighbour on my street we were passing each other.
Yeah.
I was on the cargo bike with the two girls. She was like, oh, that looks really interesting, you know, and suddenly I've met a new neighbour who lives at the top of the road there, where if I'd been travelling in my car that day, that wouldn't have happened. And I think there's been talks previously at these events. I think it was a really interesting one that was all about, you know, that community spirit that comes out through active travel. And actually, I was watching that video and I was like, oh gosh, that's absolutely spot on, that video. But unless you're participating in it, that video might look a bit silly. You might go, oh gosh, don't be so silly. Of course it doesn't, but it really does bring out that sense of community, because we're not travelling around in our isolated environments that car culture really sells.
And I think that point you made about, because I don't know exactly where it was, but I do know what you're talking about, is getting to and from Birkenhead Park from this new development. I mean, maybe one answer might be to just have a community event on a Saturday and literally walk from one place to the other, you know, or cycle or do whatever, and just get as many people as you can and just say, we're going to do this on this day. We're just going to make a point that there are alternative ways of getting from A to B, because I had to I was actually going to drive here today, but I was going to bring a friend, and when the friend couldn't come, I thought, well, what shall I do, because it's much better not to drive. So I chose to catch the train and then walk down, which wasn't that hard at all, you know. So I mean, it's just making that little decision, and you know, obviously you can't always make that decision, or you have to rethink it slightly, because obviously you're spending longer on your commute than you would have done in a car. But then you're compensating by feeling a lot less stressed. And I think that's sort of, you know, that is actually something that people can benefit from. So it's an idea.
Yeah,
anyway.
definitely. I mean, referring back to Borough Road, I cycled down Borough Road on the way here, you know, and I've come off the little bits of infrastructure that's segregated and safe, where your stress levels are all low. You know, you hit Borough Road, and I've arrived here really stressed out and really quite, because that is for all intents and purposes, it's a dual carriageway.
This one down here.
Yeah, Borough Road, ripping straight through the centre of
it's not pleasant at all.
It's not. I know. It's not, and it doesn't. You don't arrive. You didn't arrive here today feeling nice and calm. You know, you've enjoyed the sun. You know, you've had to battle the car culture that's outside.
But you've really got to have your wits about
you.
I'm going to leave you at this point, and this lady's just arrived,